There you go, from the film Patiala House. Still doing quite popular, that one, because it's great music there. Rola Pagya, Mahalakshmi Iyer, Hardcore, Shankar Mahadevan, and Earl and Master Salim, of course. You're listening to Indus with me, Talat. Now it's time for Meet the Author, which is a segment where Asian authors get the opportunity to face their reviewers. And tonight we take a look at Daisy Hassan's The To Let House. And we're joined in the studio by Daisy and tonight's reviewer, Steve Garside. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
How are you all? You all right?
We're good.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. So now, first of all, Daisy, let's get an outline of your story, The To Let House.
Okay.
What is it about?
Well, it's a book set in Shillong, which is the capital city of the northeast Indian state of Meghalaya. I'm not sure it's a region that gets much represented.
No, I don't think so.
It doesn't sort of fit the bill of India, at least in the UK. Well, it's a coming-of-age story, as well as one that looks at how conflict affects the lives of young people in the region. And the conflict in question is that between the Indian state and the movement among the local Khasi people, aiming for greater political and cultural autonomy. The novel tells the story of Kule and Clemmy, the children of indigenous landowners May and Governor. May rents out one of her houses to a non-Khasi family, Ma and her daughters Addie and Dee. And my novel tries to capture the way in which these children mark boundaries between themselves as insiders and outsiders, but also how they are attracted to each other and sometimes transcend these boundaries. So, in a way, in a nutshell, that's what it's about.
That's what it's about. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a book. So let's bring in Steve. Steve, you've read the book clearly, and you've picked out some questions. Your burning questions, I hope, that you're hoping to ask Daisy. But first of all, your overall thought about the book.
Well, I read the book twice, and I've got to say, the first time I read it, I just found it a very difficult experience, and I think that was something to do with the kind of the way that the book is written. So with any good reading, perhaps it's good to put the book down, leave it for some time, and then go back to it with a different eye. And I did, and I think the second time round, with a kind of a more of an analytical view, I think the book yielded many things. Certainly the ability of the text to transport you to another part of the planet and kind of sell you the story of these individuals as they kind of implode throughout the story. I think that as a book, there's that much trauma in it that I think that's one of the great difficulties within the text, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was kind of regularly put the book down and needed a breather from it, because I think you can only read so much grimness at a certain point in time.
Well, let's then bring in Daisy. So your first question would be that there was a lot of darkness in the book.
Yes, certainly.
So is that the case then, Daisy? Was there a reason why you had to delve into some of the harsh realities maybe of that area?
Well, yes, it does. It does deal with some of the more unpleasant realities of growing up in the Northeast both as an outsider to the region as well as an insider. But I guess it also is about the darker aspects of the human condition, about growing up, about childhood, and that I tried to sort of present a complex picture of both life in general as well as life in the Northeast.
I mean, I got a sense of when I was a long time ago now, I read a story by Ray Bradbury, and it's just really straightforward. As a spaceship, it gets hit by a meteor, and the story is about the interplay between the crew members as they drift further and further away from each other. And I got that sense from the characters in this book that there's that much going on. It's almost like they have been hit by this meteor and they are drifting off and into their own obscurity, really. And that was one of the things that I really liked about the text, that you were able to do that. I mean, stylistically, I think there's Dee, you mentioned, you use like a first and third person narrative.
That's right.
And I spent some time deliberating over that, because there's some abuse with regards to the character, and I wasn't quite sure whether stylistically that worked. as you wish, as you intended it to. Because for my mind, because that person was a kind of victim of abuse, I wasn't sure whether the first and third person narrative was a deliberate way of you as the writer kind of distancing that character from the harsher elements of the experience that she'd been.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
well, before you actually answer that then, Daisy, what we'll do is we'll go to a bit of music, then we've got the news, and we'll come back to more of those burning questions. Here's Abbas Hassan, Habibi.
Feel me, Habibi. Every time that we touch, it's crazy. Tell me why you tease me.
Some would say Pandit Ravi Shankar. We'll hear from him later too. But first, let's continue with our guests tonight. We're with our feature, Meet the Author. And in the studio today, we have writer Daisy Hassan with her book, The To Let House, and also our reviewer, Steve Garside. So, we were talking about the book, but just a reminder, if you've just joined us, Daisy, if you can tell us a little about the book itself.
Well, as I said before, it's a novel set in Shillong, the capital city of the northeast Indian state of Meghalaya, and it's a coming-of-age story, basically, as well as one that looks at how conflict affects the lives of young people in the region.
Okay, so Steve, we talked a bit about, some of the realities that Daisy's book had highlighted, which you found a bit graphic, should I say? Is that the right word for it? I'm not sure.
I think that fits well.
Right, okay. Yeah. So what then did you like about the book?
Well, I like the idea, as I mentioned earlier, that you're kind of transported as the reader into to a different part of the planet, but you're also introduced to many themes, kind of the political unrest that unfolds there, but the kind of post-colonial lifestyles of some of the characters, and within the text you get there's certain words that are not in English, so there's that kind of lesson for me as well. There's that learning within it. So I think it's the experience of being placed somewhere else as the reader and the learning that goes along with that I quite liked about the book. I think, it is a harrowing tale. There's a beginning and a middle and an end, and there are bits of optimism within there.
Yeah.
But there's not much optimism.
So for those who don't know, a beginning, a middle and an end, and harrowing tale. So what part of the story was it that really got to you then? Explain that little piece to us.
Well, I think that there's many episodes within the book that portray things, and the riot and the way that unfolds, and how it threatens to engulf the tenants of the Teller House, and how they're kind of hidden from the mob, which kind of abates just as quickly as it comes together. I think that was quite, as a reader, you want to get out of that space as well, and I thought that was done really well. It was quite graphic, but you had that kind of sense of connection and feeling with that part of the story. So for me it was that, because within that you've got you've got the interpersonal dynamics of the characters playing out within what is a kind of a regional problem with the unions and stuff like that, the way that it's described within the story. So yeah, that would be the part for me.
So, Daisy, you're right to reply. You're on the hot seat here by our reviewers. So what would you say to that then?
Well, I mean, different people connect to different things in the book. And, you're right. It is one of the more sort of, if I say so myself, compelling bits in the book, and does sort of throw into relief some of the dynamics, as you say, within the, between the characters. But you were asking me earlier about the first and third person narrative, which I don't know.
We'll find our way back there. I think. I think it's just the way that that's done. I mean, when I read it, because that character within D within the book is a subject to which is a victim of abuse. I thought that was a deliberate mechanism, that first and third party narrative. Just as a way of being able to provide distance for the character within the book.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were several reasons for doing these two different voices, and I felt, it would, using two voices would break the monotony of the first-person narrative. Okay. And it also gave me more flexibility with telling the story. It's like, using two lenses. The first-person narrative allows you a close-up perspective, so you get a view or an account of a person's inner life, as well as external responses in microscopic detail, as it were. with the third person omniscient narrative voice, I felt I could, in a way, zoom out a bit.
Yes.
And provide a top angle or bird's eye view of the whole scene and what was going on there. It's also a way of, getting some relief from the intensity of the I voice, and achieving more detachment in the telling of the story.
Okay, well, let me come in there then, Daisy. Where did this idea for this book come about?
Well, it started with, my publishers, Tara Books. They're a small but quite interesting publishing house based in the south of India in a city called Chennai. And they were looking for interesting new voices in Indian writing and voices that would reflect Indian reality, particularly the reality of young people in India that they felt wasn't reflected anywhere in literature or popular culture. So they had a workshop to sort of identify these new and exciting and original voices. And I submitted a piece for the workshop, and they felt it was something quite interesting and could be developed further. And that's how I got on to writing this book.
Okay, and because we are running out of time, so Steve, is there one sort of burning question that you have left that you feel you must ask Daisy?
Several, but I suppose I'd rather make a statement than ask a question, if that's okay. And I think that I think that it's an incredibly brave thing to do, to use different stylistic techniques within a narrative.
Sure.
And I think it's also a brave thing for the publishing house to branch out, if you like, from it's kind of a giant leap of faith. I mean, if there was one question, it would be, on reflection, 10 years on, if you edited it, would you change anything?
I don't know. I just feel like I can't I've moved on, I think. Yeah. I might, well, I don't know, actually. It now seems so much set in stone in a way. And probably not, actually. Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're happy with the way it is, and obviously that's always a bit of a demand, isn't it? Would you change something? It's in hindsight, I suppose. I don't know. Any future plans and any other books?
Struggling to write.
So how then do you find time to write, and what inspires you to write? Do you have to be in a certain place to write?
I try. I mean, a certain place in my mind, I think, and I'm always trying to get there.
Right. Okay. And Steve, a bit of a writer yourself too. So finally, what are you working on at the moment?
I'm taking part in the Manchester Book Market event next Friday, Saturday. And I've also got a couple of readings booked in part of Cartwheel Arts' festival in July, which takes place in the Town Hall in Rochdale, which I'm really chuffed about because it's my hometown. But other than that, I attend writing workshops and stuff to do with the Manchester Muslim writers, so keeping me on well and truly in the creative field. Right, lovely. Well, thank you very much, Steve, and thank you very much, Daisy, for taking part in this. It's not always easy, actually, and some authors actually say, well, no, maybe not. We don't want to be interviewed by anyone, or certainly not someone who's going to be reviewing the book and it's a listener. But there we go. Thank you for being so brave. That's very kind of you, Daisy Hassan and Steve Garside. Here's Right There.